Time is greater than money in the long run. Time is greater than money in the long run is a life philosophy that shifts your focus from short-term gains to long-term value. It's easy to measure money, we see it in our bank accounts, paychecks, and transactions. Time, by contrast, feels abstract, but it's the one resource you can never earn back. You can make more money. You can't make more time. Once it's spent, it's gone for good. At first glance, this idea can seem counterintuitive, especially in a world that constantly rewards hustle, accumulation, and financial success. But over time, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. Money is a tool, time is your life. The way you spend your hours ultimately defines your happiness, relationships, health, and legacy. It's not how much you earn, but how you live. This cheat code encourages you to start thinking in terms of opportunity cost. Every hour you trade for a paycheck is an hour you're not spending on something else, whether that's building something meaningful, resting, learning, or being with people you love. Chasing every dollar can lead to burnout, stress, and a life that feels full but hollow. On the other hand, valuing your time means saying no to what doesn't matter, delegating where possible, and investing in things that create freedom, not just income. It's also a guide for how you spend money itself. Sometimes the best use of your money is to buy back your time, to hire help, automate tasks, or avoid unnecessary stress. Paying someone to clean your home or deliver your groceries isn't laziness, it's a conscious decision to reclaim hours that you can spend on things only you can do, whether that's deep work, quality time, or simple rest. Understanding that time is more valuable than money also shifts your priorities. You stop glorifying busyness. You stop saying yes out of obligation. You start measuring success not just in profits, but in peace, presence, and purpose. You ask harder questions. Is this job costing me more than it's giving? Am I saving money but wasting my life? Would I regret this use of time if I had only a few years left? The point isn't to ignore money, it matters, especially when you're trying to meet basic needs. But once you reach a baseline of financial stability, the goal shifts. The real wealth is time, time to think, to create, to connect, to heal, to explore. People often realize this too late, only after they've spent years trading their best hours for things that don't last. This cheat code is a reminder not to wait. In the long run, money comes and goes. But time only goes. When you start treating your time as your most precious currency, life gets richer in the ways that matter most. Don't be afraid to be bad at something new. Don't be afraid to be bad at something new is a life cheat code that unlocks rapid growth, creativity, and unexpected joy, if you're brave enough to use it. In a world that rewards competence, perfection, and polished results, many people develop a quiet fear of looking foolish. They avoid new skills, new roles, new hobbies, or new risks unless they're sure they'll be good from the start. But this mindset is a trap. It keeps you confined to what you already know. And it robs you of the rich, messy, essential process of becoming. The truth is, every expert was once a beginner. Every master started off clumsy. Every passion usually began with frustration, awkwardness, and trial and error. Being bad at something is not a flaw, it's a stage. And one of the most courageous and liberating things you can do in life is to give yourself permission to start poorly. When you drop the pressure to be good immediately, you free yourself from the fear of judgment, both external and internal. You become a student of the process rather than a prisoner of your ego. You begin to explore, to play, to discover what you're capable of. And that mindset of curiosity over perfection changes everything. This principle applies to nearly every area of life. Want to learn a language? You'll sound ridiculous at first. That's part of it. Want to try painting, dancing, coding, cooking, public speaking? You'll make mistakes. That's how you improve. Want to start a business, write a book, train for a marathon. The early efforts may be ugly, slow, even embarrassing. That's not failure. That's learning. What separates people who grow from those who stay stuck isn't talent, it's willingness. Willingness to look foolish. Willingness to get feedback. Willingness to feel uncomfortable. That's where transformation happens. Ironically, trying too hard to look competent from the beginning often slows down your growth. You hesitate. You fake it. You avoid the hard parts. But if you can embrace the awkward early stages, you'll progress faster than people who are too afraid to try at all. This cheat code also fosters empathy. When you know what it feels like to be bad at something new, you become more patient with others who are learning. You stop mocking beginners. You become someone who supports growth rather than expects perfection. The freedom to be bad is a freedom most people never give themselves. But those who do, they gain something rare, the power to reinvent themselves again and again, in any area of life. So go ahead, be bad at something new. Fumble. Laugh. Try again. Because what feels like failure in the moment is often just the first step on the path to something extraordinary. Daily walks equals free therapy. Daily walks are one of the simplest, most underrated forms of self-care, a kind of free therapy that asks for nothing but a bit of your time and attention. In a world that often feels rushed, noisy, and fragmented, the act of stepping outside and putting one foot in front of the other creates a rare kind of stillness. It's not just physical movement, it's mental and emotional processing. Something shifts when you walk. Thoughts untangle. Anxiety softens. Problems shrink to their actual size. There's a reason walking has been a go-to ritual for thinkers, writers, and creatives for centuries. It puts your body in motion without demanding much effort, allowing your mind to roam more freely. Stress often feels stuck, like a loop you can't break, but walking creates momentum. It's meditative without needing to sit still. It grounds you in your environment, the rhythm of your steps, the feeling of air on your skin, the changing scenery. Even 10 or 15 minutes can reset your nervous system and give you a sense of clarity that you can't find staring at a screen or sitting at a desk. The power of a daily walk isn't just mental, it's chemical. Walking, especially outside, triggers the release of endorphins and serotonin, lifting your mood naturally. If you walk in the morning sunlight, you also regulate your circadian rhythm, improving sleep and energy levels. If you walk in nature, even better, green spaces have been shown to reduce cortisol, lower blood pressure, and improve attention. But even a loop around the block or a hallway stroll during a break can work wonders. It's the habit of stepping away from the noise, both internal and external, that makes the difference. What makes this life cheat code so powerful is its accessibility. You don't need a membership, a therapist, or a plan. You just go. It doesn't have to be fast, or long, or tracked. Some days, it might feel like a reset button, other days, it might just be a quiet pause. Both are valid. Over time, daily walks become more than movement, they become a ritual of reflection, regulation, and return. Return to yourself. Return to the present. In a culture obsessed with optimization and constant input, walking reminds you that healing, clarity, and peace are often just a few steps away. It's therapy you don't have to schedule. A practice that listens more than it speaks. And in its quiet, consistent way, it teaches you that sometimes, the best way to move through life's difficulties is to literally keep moving. Use the wait 24 hours rule for purchases. Use the wait 24 hours rule for purchases is a powerful life cheat code designed to protect your wallet, your peace of mind, and your long-term goals from the emotional pull of impulsive spending. In a world engineered to tempt you, flash sales, one-click checkouts, limited time offers, this simple rule creates a buffer between your emotions and your bank account. It's not about depriving yourself, it's about giving yourself time to think. The rule is exactly what it sounds like. Whenever you feel the urge to buy something non-essential, especially if it's a spontaneous or emotional decision, pause. Don't buy it immediately. Instead, wait 24 hours before making the purchase. If, after a full day has passed, you still genuinely want it, and it fits your budget, you can go ahead and buy it without guilt. But more often than not, that initial excitement fades, and you realize you didn't really need or even want the item as much as you thought. This works because most impulse purchases are driven by temporary emotion, not true need. You're bored, stressed, celebrating, or seeking a dopamine hit. Marketers know this, which is why they create urgency, countdown timers, only 3 left in stock, or deal ends at midnight. The 24-hour rule disrupts that emotional pressure. It puts space between the impulse and the action, allowing logic and clarity to return. That pause gives you time to ask better questions. Do I actually need this? Will I still want it a week from now? Is this the best version or price I could get? Is this aligned with my bigger financial goals? In many cases, you'll realize the answer is no. And just like that, you've saved money, avoided buyer's remorse, and kept your financial plan intact, all because you were willing to wait. Over time, this habit builds financial discipline. You begin to recognize patterns in your spending behavior. You become more intentional, more patient, and more aware of the true value of your money. And perhaps most importantly, you shift from being reactive to being in control. Interestingly, the 24-hour rule often leads to more satisfaction, not less. When you do buy something after waiting, it's a decision rooted in clarity, not compulsion. You enjoy the purchase more because it was thoughtful and intentional. No guilt, no regret, just value. In a culture that encourages instant gratification, the 24-hour rule is a quiet act of self-mastery. It's simple, free, and surprisingly effective. And once you get used to it, you'll wonder how much money and mental clutter you used to lose to impulsive decisions. You don't need to finish every book. You don't need to finish every book is a liberating life cheat code that challenges a deeply ingrained belief that once you start reading a book, you must finish it. This mindset, often driven by guilt, sunk cost fallacy, or perfectionism, can ironically stifle the very reason we read in the first place, to learn, grow, or enjoy ourselves. Letting go of this need to finish every book is not a sign of failure, it's a strategic shift toward intentional learning and time management. Books are tools, not obligations. Not every book will speak to you, fit your current needs, or be worth the time it takes to read cover to cover. Some are poorly written, redundant, or padded with fluff. Others may simply not resonate with where you are in life. Continuing to push through such books out of a sense of duty can drain your motivation and slow down your overall growth. Time is finite. Every minute spent on something unhelpful is a minute stolen from something that could truly impact you. This cheat code is about reclaiming agency over your learning journey. It encourages you to treat books like resources, not tests. If a book offers what you needed in the first few chapters, there's no rule that says you must read the rest. If you're skimming through pages without interest or value, it's okay, wise, even, to put the book down and move on. The best readers are not those who finish the most books, but those who extract the most useful insights from them. In fact, this mindset often leads to reading more, not less. When you free yourself from the pressure to finish everything, you become more curious, more experimental. You're willing to pick up books you might not have tried, knowing that abandoning them later is always an option. You become better at navigating information, more efficient at identifying what's worth your time, and more focused on what matters. This principle applies not only to books, but to any input, courses, podcasts, videos, even conversations. Just because you started doesn't mean you must finish. Value is not found in completion, but in relevance. Ultimately, you don't need to finish every book. It's about aligning your reading habits with your goals and interests. It's about giving yourself permission to prioritize curiosity, quality, and momentum over obligation. And once you internalize it, you'll never look at your bookshelf, or your time, the same way again. Never complain, condemn, or criticize. Never complain, condemn, or criticize is a life cheat code popularized by Dale Carnegie in his classic book How to Win Friends and Influence People. At first glance, it may sound overly idealistic or even impractical. After all, isn't some level of complaint or criticism necessary to express dissatisfaction or correct wrongs? But when unpacked, this principle reveals a deeper truth. Most negative expressions do far more harm than good, especially in human relationships. By avoiding them, we not only preserve harmony but also become more persuasive, respected, and emotionally grounded. To complain is to focus on what's wrong without offering a solution. While it might bring temporary relief or sympathy, habitual complaining often breeds negativity, both in ourselves and those around us. It drains energy, shifts attention away from constructive action, and can subtly train the mind to look for problems rather than possibilities. Worse, it makes us less enjoyable to be around. No one is inspired by chronic dissatisfaction. Replacing complaints with curiosity or constructive dialogue is not about ignoring problems, it's about approaching them with a mindset that leads to change rather than stagnation. Condemning and criticizing, meanwhile, can feel like natural ways to correct behavior or express disapproval, but they often backfire. When you condemn someone, you trigger their defensiveness. Their ego responds not with reflection, but resistance. Instead of learning from your words, they shut down or retaliate. Criticism, even when justified, is rarely received with gratitude unless it's delivered with great care, empathy, and a foundation of trust. That's the genius of this cheat code. It doesn't mean you stay silent in the face of issues, it means you become smarter in how you deal with them. Rather than criticizing a colleague, you ask thoughtful questions that help them reflect. Instead of condemning someone's behavior, you share how it impacted you, using I statements that invite conversation rather than conflict. Instead of complaining about your circumstances, you reframe your mindset or take actions to improve them. What makes this principle so powerful is that it transforms you into a calming, uplifting presence. In a world full of blame and noise, people gravitate toward those who stay composed, constructive, and compassionate. They trust you more. They listen to you more. You become someone who uplifts rather than drags down the energy in a room, and that's rare. Moreover, this cheat code cultivates inner discipline. It trains your mind to pause before reacting, to choose influence over impulse. It fosters emotional intelligence, the ability to navigate human interactions without escalating tension or shutting people down. And over time, it sharpens your communication skills, helping you express your thoughts in ways that create connection instead of division. Never complain, condemn, or criticize is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about choosing power over pity, empathy over ego, and solution over reaction. Once internalized, this mindset elevates not only your relationships but your sense of self-control, peace, and purpose. It's one of those rare principles that makes life better for everyone it touches, starting with you. The 5-year rule. The 5-year rule is a simple yet powerful mindset tool often described as a life cheat code because of how effectively it can reframe our decisions, fears, and priorities. At its core, the 5-year rule asks, will this matter in 5 years? This question, when applied sincerely, can cut through emotional noise, reduce anxiety, and clarify what truly deserves our time and energy. In everyday life, we often get caught up in the stress of small problems, an awkward conversation, a missed deadline, a rejection, or a mistake that feels enormous in the moment. But when we pause and apply the 5-year rule, we step outside of the immediate emotional reaction and place the situation in a broader timeline. Most of the things that cause us stress, embarrassments, arguments, temporary failures, will be completely irrelevant in 5 years, or even forgotten. Realizing this can help us let go faster and preserve our peace of mind. However, the 5-year rule isn't just about minimizing worry. It also works in the opposite direction. It reminds us to focus on what will matter in 5 years. That includes building skills, forming healthy habits, maintaining relationships, and pursuing goals that may take time but offer lasting value. If you ask yourself whether spending 30 minutes a day learning a new language or saving a small portion of your income will matter in 5 years, the answer is likely yes. This creates a sense of long-term thinking that can drive consistent action and help you make choices that compound positively over time. The 5-year rule also helps in navigating tough decisions. When torn between comfort and growth, it can be helpful to ask, which choice will I thank myself for 5 years from now? Often, the answer leans toward the uncomfortable path, the one involving effort, risk, or change, because long-term benefits tend to come from short-term discomfort. This perspective can give us the courage to take action we might otherwise avoid. Ultimately, the 5-year rule is about zooming out. It shifts our mindset from reactive to reflective, from short-term emotion to long-term intention. It reminds us that most pain is temporary, but growth is cumulative. When used wisely, it can guide us to live with greater clarity, purpose, and peace. Automate your savings. Automate your savings is a life cheat code that transforms good intentions into guaranteed results. At its core, this strategy is about removing willpower, emotion, and forgetfulness from the process of building financial stability. By setting up your finances to save money automatically, you turn saving into a habit that happens in the background, without requiring daily discipline or conscious effort. It's simple, smart, and profoundly effective. The biggest obstacle to saving money isn't usually a lack of income, it's human nature. We're wired for immediate gratification, not long-term planning. Even when we know we should save, we often don't. Expenses pop up. Impulses take over. We tell ourselves we'll start next month. And so, saving becomes something we intend to do, rather than something we actually do. Automation bypasses all of that. Here's how it works. You set up a system where a fixed percentage of your income is automatically transferred into a separate savings or investment account as soon as you get paid. This could be a bank savings account, a retirement fund, or a high-yield account, whatever aligns with your goals. The key is that the transfer happens before you have a chance to spend the money. You never see it. You don't miss it. And it grows quietly in the background. This principle is often summed up in the phrase, pay yourself first. Instead of saving what's left over after spending, you save first and then spend what's left over. It flips the traditional budgeting model and ensures that your future is always being prioritized. Even small amounts, saved consistently, add up over time. Thanks to the power of compound interest, your savings don't just accumulate, they grow exponentially. Automating your savings also reduces stress and decision fatigue. You don't have to constantly think about how much to save or worry about missing a month. It's handled. This creates financial momentum and frees up mental energy for other important areas of life. Another benefit is that it helps you build discipline without pain. You're training yourself to live on less without feeling deprived, because the shift is gradual and invisible. Over time, your lifestyle adjusts to the amount you have available, and your savings continue to build quietly in the background. Most people underestimate how powerful this is because it feels passive. But that's exactly the point. Automation works because it removes you from the equation. You don't need to be perfectly disciplined or constantly motivated. You just need to set up the system once and let it run. Ultimately, automate your savings is not just a financial tactic, it's a mindset shift. It says, I'm not leaving my future to chance. I'm creating a system that protects me from my worst habits and rewards my best intentions. And once it's in place, you'll be amazed at how much progress you can make, even while doing nothing at all. Lifestyle inflation is a trap. Lifestyle inflation is a crucial life cheat code that helps you build long-term wealth, peace of mind, and true financial freedom. It's about recognizing a sneaky psychological pattern. As your income increases, your spending tends to rise with it, often unnecessarily. What starts as a reward for hard work can easily spiral into a cycle of constantly chasing more, while never actually feeling more secure or satisfied. This phenomenon is called lifestyle inflation, and unless you spot it early, it can silently sabotage your financial goals. Here's how it works: you get a raise, land a better paying job, or find a new source of income. At first, you feel on top of the world. You can finally afford the nicer apartment, the newer car, the upgraded phone, or more frequent dinners out. It feels like progress, and in some ways, it is. But as your lifestyle expands to match your income, the extra money that could have gone towards savings, investing, or debt reduction vanishes into higher monthly expenses. You're earning more, but not keeping more. Over time, this creates a treadmill effect. You're working harder, earning more, and yet still living paycheck to paycheck. The bar for what feels normal keeps rising, making it harder to ever scale back. What once felt luxurious now feels like a necessity. And if your income were to suddenly drop, due to a job loss, recession, or unexpected crisis, you'd be financially exposed, because your lifestyle costs have outpaced your safety net. This is why lifestyle inflation is so dangerous. It feels harmless, even deserved, but it erodes your financial resilience. That's where the cheat code comes in. The smart move is to consciously resist lifestyle creep. When your income rises, instead of inflating your lifestyle, redirect a large portion of that increase toward savings, investments, or paying off debt. This doesn't mean you can't enjoy any upgrades. You've earned the right to improve your quality of life, but it means doing so intentionally, not impulsively. Buy better shoes if it improves your comfort. Invest in tools that enhance your work. But don't let every raise disappear into lifestyle habits that leave you no better off than before. Those who master this mindset build what truly matters: freedom. Freedom from financial stress. Freedom to take career risks. Freedom to travel, retire early, or support loved ones. While others stay trapped in a cycle of working to sustain a bloated lifestyle, you're creating options for your future. The secret is this: wealth isn't about how much you earn. It's about how much you keep and how wisely you use it. By avoiding the trap of lifestyle inflation, you unlock a path to lasting abundance, without needing to earn millions. It's a quiet discipline, but over time, it separates those who stay stuck from those who move forward with purpose, security, and peace. Be 1% better each day. Being 1% better each day is a life cheat code rooted in the power of small, consistent improvement, a mindset that trades perfection and overnight success for steady progress over time. It's based on a simple but profound idea: you don't need to completely transform your life all at once. You just need to improve slightly, deliberately, and repeatedly. That tiny gain, multiplied day after day, becomes something massive. This principle works because of compound growth. Just like money invested wisely builds interest over time, effort invested consistently builds results. If you get 1% better at something every day, the improvement doesn't just add up, it multiplies. After a year, that 1% daily improvement becomes more than 37 times better than where you started. But the real power isn't in the math, it's in the mindset. It frees you from the pressure to be perfect and replaces it with a more sustainable standard: just do a little bit better than yesterday. This mindset applies to every area of life. You don't need to write a book in a weekend, just write one paragraph today. You don't need to overhaul your health, just take one healthier step, like drinking water instead of soda or walking for 10 minutes. You don't need to become a new person overnight, just become a slightly more thoughtful, focused, or patient version of yourself than you were the day before. The beauty of aiming for 1% better is that it's small enough to feel doable, but meaningful enough to create real change. It removes the all-or-nothing thinking that causes most people to quit. You're not chasing perfection. You're building momentum. And with momentum, progress becomes easier, motivation becomes more consistent, and setbacks become less discouraging. If you have a bad day, it's just one step, not the end of the journey. This cheat code also rewires how you view success. Big wins start to look less like random breakthroughs and more like the result of hundreds of tiny, smart choices stacked over time. It's not about talent, luck, or intensity, it's about showing up, improving a little, and doing it again tomorrow. In the end, being 1% better each day is a quiet, powerful discipline. It's a commitment to growth without pressure, to movement without burnout, and to change that sticks. Over time, those small daily wins reshape not just your skills or habits, but your identity. You stop trying to prove yourself all at once, and start becoming the kind of person who improves by default, slowly, steadily, and with purpose. Stretch while watching TV or YouTube. Stretching while watching TV or YouTube is one of those low-effort, high-reward habits that can quietly transform your physical and mental well-being without demanding extra time or motivation. It's a simple shift in how you spend moments that would otherwise be completely passive. Instead of sinking into the couch and going completely still, you use the time to give your body what it often craves but rarely gets: gentle movement, release, and care. Modern life encourages stillness, but not in a good way. Hours spent sitting at desks, scrolling on phones, or binge-watching content slowly tighten the body and dull the mind. Over time, this can lead to stiffness, poor posture, back pain, and a general feeling of being sluggish or disconnected from your body. Stretching, even for just a few minutes, reverses that trend. It loosens up tight muscles, increases circulation, relieves tension, and boosts mobility. But the real beauty of this habit is that it doesn't require you to carve out extra time in your schedule, it simply blends into something you already do. By attaching stretching to an activity you enjoy, like watching a show or catching up on videos, you bypass the usual resistance. It doesn't feel like a chore or a workout, it just becomes part of your downtime routine. You can stretch during the first 10 minutes of a movie, during ad breaks, or while watching casual content. There's no need for a mat, special clothes, or a plan. You listen to your body. Reach for your toes, roll your shoulders, stretch your hips, open your chest, whatever feels good and helps you release tension. Over time, this habit pays off in quiet, powerful ways. You start to feel looser, more aware of your posture, and less prone to aches. Your flexibility improves without much conscious effort. More importantly, you reclaim the connection between mind and body, something that often gets lost in our screen-centered routines. Stretching while watching TV isn't just a physical hack, it's also a moment of mindfulness disguised as entertainment. It reminds you that taking care of your body doesn't have to be complicated or time-consuming. Sometimes it just means standing up during the credits and reaching toward the ceiling. This cheat code works because it meets you where you already are. No willpower tax. No guilt. Just a simple choice to add value to time you're already spending. And like most good habits, once it becomes part of your rhythm, you'll wonder how you ever sat still for so long. Track your time for 1 week. Tracking your time for 1 week is a simple but eye-opening life cheat code that can completely transform how you think about productivity, priorities, and your daily habits. Most people think they know where their time goes, working, commuting, eating, relaxing, but in reality, the way we spend our hours is often full of unconscious drift, hidden inefficiencies, and time sinks we don't notice until we see them mapped out. Tracking your time reveals the truth. It turns vague feelings like, "I'm so busy," or "I don't have time," into clear, measurable data. For 1 week, you become a quiet observer of your own life. You don't need fancy tools, a notebook, spreadsheet, or simple tracking app will do. The idea is to log what you're doing in 15 to 30-minute blocks throughout the day, working, scrolling, cooking, walking, resting, talking, reading, watching, avoiding. No judgment, just honesty. The goal isn't to shame yourself, it's to see yourself. Because once you know where your time actually goes, you can begin to make conscious choices about how you want to spend it. The power of this practice lies in awareness. When you track your time, you start to notice patterns. Maybe you thought you worked 8 focused hours a day, but the data shows 4 hours of deep work and 4 hours of scattered distractions. Maybe you didn't realize how much time goes into context switching, unplanned calls, or low-value busy work. Maybe you find you're spending more time consuming than creating, or more time reacting than choosing. These realizations can be uncomfortable, but they're also freeing. Because now you can do something about it. After a week, you'll likely start to see gaps between how you want to live and how you're actually living. That's the turning point. With clear data in front of you, you can start cutting what doesn't matter and creating space for what does. You can protect your most productive hours, plan rest intentionally, batch tasks more efficiently, or build habits that align with your goals. You're no longer operating on autopilot. You're designing your time with intention. The cheat code here isn't just about optimization, it's about ownership. Time is your most limited resource, and tracking it is a way of saying, "I want to know where it goes, because I want to decide where it goes." In just 1 week, you gain insights that can reshape your routine, sharpen your focus, and help you reclaim hours you didn't even realize you were losing. It's a small commitment with massive returns, and the first step toward living with more clarity, direction, and purpose. Mirror their energy, not just words. Mirror their energy, not just words is a powerful and nuanced life cheat code that goes beyond simple communication techniques. It's about tuning into the emotional and social frequency of the person you're interacting with, not just what they say, but how they say it, and matching that energy in a way that builds connection, trust, and influence. When used with awareness and authenticity, this skill can elevate everything from casual conversations to high-stakes negotiations. Most people are familiar with the idea of mirroring in communication, repeating someone's words, paraphrasing, or subtly copying their gestures. These tactics work because they create a sense of familiarity and alignment. But mirroring someone's energy is a deeper form of emotional intelligence. It involves reading the unspoken cues, tone of voice, pace of speech, level of enthusiasm, emotional state, and overall vibe. It's not mimicry, it's resonance. When you mirror someone's energy effectively, you make them feel understood on an emotional level. If someone is excited and speaking quickly, mirroring that upbeat tempo and enthusiasm helps you meet them where they are. They feel like you get it. If someone is quiet, thoughtful, or emotionally low, slowing down and softening your tone shows that you're attuned to their mood. If someone is intense and focused, matching their seriousness communicates that you respect their urgency. It's emotional alignment in real time. This approach has 2 major benefits. First, it builds rapport faster. People naturally connect with those who seem to operate at the same emotional frequency. It creates a sense of safety and belonging, which leads to more open and honest communication. Second, it builds influence. When people feel emotionally synced with you, they're more receptive to your ideas, feedback, and presence. You become someone who feels familiar, even if you just met. However, this cheat code must be used sincerely. If your mirroring feels fake or forced, it can backfire. People are surprisingly good at detecting when they're being manipulated. That's why the key is not to imitate, but to adapt. You're not becoming the other person, you're adjusting your expression to meet them in a space where communication flows naturally. It's empathy in motion. Mirroring energy is also not about always matching, it's about knowing when to match and when to shift. Sometimes, you may need to lead the emotional tone instead of following it. For example, if someone is anxious and you stay calm and grounded, your steady energy can help regulate theirs. The real power comes from the ability to read the room and choose whether to reflect, neutralize, or gently redirect the emotional tone. Ultimately, mirror their energy, not just words, is about being present. It's about listening with your whole body, not just your ears. And it's about speaking to people not just intellectually, but emotionally. Mastering this skill turns ordinary conversations into meaningful exchanges, and surface-level connections into deeper bonds. It's one of those invisible arts of communication that, once you start practicing it, changes how people respond to you, and how connected you feel to them. The 2-minute rule. The 2-minute rule is a deceptively simple yet remarkably effective life strategy that helps combat procrastination, reduce mental clutter, and build long-term productive habits. At its heart, the rule operates on a straightforward principle: if a task takes less than 2 minutes to complete, do it immediately. This tiny behavioral shift has the power to streamline your day, improve your focus, and lower your overall stress levels. We often underestimate how much energy we spend tracking, delaying, or mentally juggling small tasks, responding to a brief email, putting away an item, sending a reminder, rinsing a dish. Though each action takes less than a couple of minutes, postponing them leads to a growing pile of unfinished business that quietly weighs on the mind. By choosing to complete these tasks as soon as they appear, you prevent them from accumulating and demanding more time and attention later. Beyond these quick wins, the 2-minute rule also offers a deeper advantage when it comes to forming new habits. If you want to build a consistent behavior, begin with something that only takes 2 minutes. Instead of trying to write a novel, start by opening your writing app and typing a sentence. Rather than committing to a full workout, just change into your exercise clothes. These tiny starts may seem insignificant, but they serve as gateways. Starting is often the hardest part of any endeavor, and when the bar for starting is set extremely low, resistance fades. You trick your brain into motion, and once you've begun, it becomes much easier to keep going. Over time, what began as a 2-minute commitment can naturally grow into a full habit without feeling forced or overwhelming. The brilliance of the 2-minute rule lies in its simplicity. It doesn't require apps, systems, or long-term planning. It's about seizing the moment and building a bias toward action. Whether it's tackling small tasks immediately or making big goals approachable through tiny starts, the rule invites consistency over intensity and progress over perfection. In a world full of distractions and demands, it serves as a quiet form of discipline, a way to keep moving forward, 2 minutes at a time. 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle, is one of the most valuable mental models for gaining clarity, focus, and control in both your personal and professional life. It's based on the insight that not all effort produces equal results. In fact, a small percentage of what you do leads to the vast majority of your outcomes. Specifically, the rule suggests that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. This ratio isn't always exact, but the principle holds remarkably true across a wide range of areas. 20% of your clients generate 80% of your revenue, 20% of your tasks drive 80% of your progress, and 20% of your habits shape 80% of your life experience. The power of the 80-20 rule lies in its ability to uncover hidden leverage. In a world where time and energy are limited, trying to do everything equally is a trap. The Pareto principle offers a smarter approach. Identify the few actions, relationships, or habits that truly move the needle, and double down on those. When you take the time to examine your activities through this lens, you often realize that a lot of what fills your day has very little real impact. You might be spending hours on tasks that feel productive but actually contribute little to your long-term goals. This principle encourages ruthless prioritization. Instead of spreading yourself thin, you focus on the vital few rather than the trivial many. You ask better questions. Which 20% of tasks are creating the most stress? Which clients take up the most time but offer the least return? Which habits give me the most energy, clarity, or confidence? The answers to these questions are often surprising and incredibly liberating. They allow you to let go of low-value activities, delegate more effectively, and create space for what truly matters. Applying the 80-20 rule isn't about doing less for the sake of laziness, it's about doing less of what doesn't work so you can do more of what does. It's about efficiency, not effort. When you align your time, attention, and resources with the most impactful areas of your life, you start to see exponential returns. Progress feels faster, results feel more meaningful, and burnout becomes less likely. In the end, the 80-20 rule is a life cheat code because it helps you escape the myth that success requires doing everything. It reminds you that effectiveness isn't about being busy, it's about being selective. By focusing on the few things that truly matter, you unlock more results with less effort, and create a life that feels both lighter and more aligned. Ask more questions than you give answers. Ask more questions than you give answers is a life cheat code that flips a common habit on its head. Most people assume that offering answers makes them appear smart, helpful, or in control. And sometimes it does. But in many situations, especially when building relationships, leading teams, or learning, asking thoughtful questions is far more powerful. It signals humility, curiosity, and respect. It invites insight instead of imposing it. And often, it leads to better results than giving advice ever could. When you ask questions instead of jumping in with answers, you create space for others to think, speak, and reflect. You're not just throwing out solutions, you're drawing out perspectives, values, and motivations. That kind of space is rare and valuable. People are far more likely to open up, trust you, and collaborate when they feel heard and understood, not lectured or fixed. For example, instead of telling someone how to solve a problem, you might ask, "What do you think is the real issue here? Have you considered any other options? What would success look like for you?" These questions don't just invite better answers, they develop better thinkers. They encourage the other person to explore their own reasoning, gain clarity, and arrive at their own conclusions. That builds confidence and independence, rather than creating dependency on your input. This cheat code is also essential for learning. The people who grow the fastest are rarely the ones talking the most. They're the ones asking the best questions, of others, of themselves, and of the world around them. Questions unlock deeper understanding. They guide your attention to what actually matters. They turn surface knowledge into insight. In leadership, asking questions instead of giving orders builds stronger, more engaged teams. It shows that you value input. It fosters ownership. It helps uncover blind spots and risks that might otherwise go unnoticed. Great leaders often know that their job isn't to have all the answers, it's to ask the right questions so the best answers emerge from the people around them. And in personal relationships, this principle is just as transformative. Asking questions shows genuine interest. It creates connection. It lets others feel seen and heard. Whether it's asking someone how their day really went, or what they're excited about, or what they need in a tough moment, it's often the question, not the advice, that brings people closer. Of course, there are times when giving answers is appropriate, especially if someone explicitly asks for your expertise or guidance. But if your default setting is to explain, advise, or correct, you might be unintentionally shutting down the very conversations you're trying to help. Shifting your mindset to curious over certain rewires how you interact with the world. It turns conversations into opportunities for discovery. It transforms lectures into dialogues. It reminds you that the smartest person in the room isn't the one who talks the most, it's often the one who asks the best questions. In short, asking more questions than you give answers keeps you humble, keeps others engaged, and keeps the conversation, and the learning, alive. Audit your inputs. Auditing your inputs is a life cheat code that puts you back in control of your mental environment by making you deeply aware of what you're consuming, digitally, emotionally, and socially. In a world overflowing with information, opinions, noise, and distractions, your attention is constantly under attack. Most people don't realize how much their thoughts, moods, habits, and even sense of identity are shaped by what they expose themselves to on a daily basis. Just like your body reflects what you eat, your mind reflects what you let in. Inputs come in many forms: the news you read, the podcasts you listen to, the shows you binge, the people you follow, the conversations you have, and the environments you move through. Each one leaves a mark, sometimes energizing and motivating, other times draining, distracting, or quietly toxic. Auditing your inputs means stepping back and asking, what am I allowing into my head every day? Is it helping me grow, or is it cluttering my thinking? This isn't about cutting yourself off from the world or living in an echo chamber. It's about being intentional. You start to notice how certain social media accounts make you feel insecure, how constant news alerts keep you anxious, or how spending time with certain people always leaves you mentally exhausted. You also start to realize which inputs fuel you: books that expand your thinking, people who challenge and uplift you, quiet time that helps you reset, or content that sparks curiosity instead of outrage. When you audit your inputs, you take ownership of your mental diet. You unfollow accounts that promote negativity or comparison. You turn off notifications that interrupt your focus. You curate your digital space like a garden, pulling weeds, planting seeds. You replace empty noise with quality signals. Instead of passively absorbing whatever's in front of you, you become the filter, not the sponge. This shift creates space for better thinking, better decisions, and better emotional regulation. You feel less scattered, more grounded. Creativity returns. Motivation strengthens. You stop reacting to everything and start choosing what truly deserves your time and energy. Over time, auditing your inputs becomes a habit of self-respect, a way of protecting your attention from being hijacked and redirecting it toward things that align with the life you want to build. In essence, this cheat code reminds you that your mind is not a dumping ground, it's a workspace, a sanctuary, a tool. What you feed it matters. And the fewer inputs you allow by default, the more power you have to shape your thoughts by design. Drink water before coffee. Drinking water before coffee is a deceptively simple habit that can quietly upgrade your energy, focus, and overall well-being without adding anything to your to-do list, just a small shift in the order of what you're already doing. It's the kind of life cheat code that seems too minor to matter, until you try it and realize how much of a difference it makes. After hours of sleep, your body wakes up naturally dehydrated. You've gone an entire night without any fluid intake, yet the first thing many people reach for in the morning is coffee, a diuretic that can further dehydrate you. When you drink coffee before water, you're essentially asking your system to operate on empty. That can lead to a spike in adrenaline followed by a crash, increased jitteriness, slower digestion, and even that foggy feeling people often blame on just not being a morning person. But when you drink water first, you give your body a head start. Hydration supports nearly every system. Your brain wakes up more clearly, your metabolism kicks in, and your digestive system prepares for the day ahead. Even a single glass of water in the morning can help flush out waste, lubricate joints, and regulate body temperature, all before that first sip of caffeine. It's not about replacing coffee, it's about letting your body wake up naturally before throwing it into high gear. The difference is subtle but real. People who make this switch often report feeling more balanced, less jittery, and more mentally alert throughout the morning. It's a way of saying, "I'll take care of you first," to your body before asking it to perform. And the beauty is, it takes no extra time. You can keep your morning coffee ritual exactly as it is, just delay it by a few minutes and down a glass of water first. That one act can set a more grounded tone for your entire day. In a world obsessed with hacks and supplements, drinking water before coffee is a humble habit with surprisingly outsized benefits. It's free, effortless, and already within reach. You don't need to overhaul your life to feel better, you just need to shift your sequence. Drink water, then coffee. Your body will thank you, every day. Google like a pro. Google like a pro is a life cheat code that turns the world's most powerful information tool into your personal advantage, if you know how to use it well. While most people treat Google like a simple question box, those who master its deeper functions can solve problems faster, learn more effectively, and make better decisions in almost any area of life. In a world where knowledge is power, skillful Googling is a superpower. The difference between a casual user and a pro Googler isn't just about typing questions into the search bar, it's about knowing how to ask the right question in the right way. Google isn't magic, it's a logic-based engine that responds best to clarity, specificity, and structure. Instead of searching, "How to fix my computer," a pro would type something like, "Windows 10 laptop not starting black screen after update." The difference in results is dramatic. The more precisely you describe your problem, the more relevant and high-quality answers you'll get. Professional Googlers also understand and use special operators, powerful little symbols and tricks that filter results. For example, using quotes, like this, searches for exact phrases. Adding a minus sign removes unwanted results, e.g., Jaguar car to find info about the animal, not the brand. You can search a specific website using cite, e.g., cite, NewYorkTimes.com inflation, or limit results to a time range using tools under Search Tools anytime. These techniques can cut through the clutter of the internet and surface what truly matters. Another skill pros use is skimming and vetting sources quickly. Instead of clicking the first link, they scan the URLs, read snippets, and assess credibility at a glance. They avoid SEO traps and clickbait, and instead look for official sources, expert forums, research databases, or reputable articles. This isn't just about speed, it's about quality. In a world where misinformation spreads easily, being able to judge the reliability of your sources is crucial. Googling like a pro also means knowing what to Google. Sometimes the answer isn't direct. You might need to search for background concepts first. For example, if you don't understand your car's error message, a smart move would be to Google the terminology it uses before trying to fix the issue. This layered searching builds a foundation that leads to smarter solutions. In essence, this cheat code is about self-sufficiency. The people who make the fastest progress today are often not the ones with the most knowledge, but the ones who know how to find knowledge quickly, evaluate it critically, and apply it effectively. Google is a tool that levels the playing field, if you know how to use it. Mastering it doesn't take genius. It takes curiosity, clarity, and a little bit of technique. But once you do, you'll find yourself wasting less time, solving more problems, and becoming the person others come to for answers. Move before mood. Move before mood is a life cheat code rooted in a simple but often forgotten truth: action creates emotion more reliably than emotion creates action. Many people wait until they feel motivated, energized, or confident before they start doing something, whether it's working out, tackling a project, or getting out of bed. But this waiting game is a trap. The mood rarely comes first. What actually shifts the mood is movement. This principle flips the common logic. Instead of saying, "I need to feel ready before I act," it says, "Start moving, and that will make you feel ready." The beauty of this idea is in its practicality. You don't need to overhaul your life or summon superhuman discipline. You just need to take one small physical or mental action, even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. Feeling tired? Stretch for 30 seconds. Feeling anxious? Walk around the block. Feeling stuck creatively? Write a single messy sentence. Feeling unmotivated? Do one micro task, no matter how small. It doesn't have to be dramatic. The power lies in momentum. The moment your body is in motion or your brain begins a task, your internal state starts to shift. Dopamine is released. Resistance weakens. Focus sharpens. The mood you were waiting for begins to follow the action, not precede it. This cheat code is especially powerful in the face of procrastination and low mood. Depression, burnout, and overwhelm often trick the brain into paralysis, waiting for a feeling to spark change. But move before mood gives you a tool that bypasses the mental fog. It says, don't negotiate with yourself. Don't wait to want to do the thing. Just start doing. Even if it's clumsy. Even if it's reluctant. That first step breaks the inertia, and once you're moving, everything becomes easier. It also applies to confidence. You don't need to feel confident before you speak up, pitch an idea, or try something new. You become confident through the action. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving with fear. In relationships, work, habits, and health, this principle delivers. Motion regulates emotion. And the less you rely on your mood to determine your actions, the more consistently you can build habits, honor commitments, and move toward your goals. Move before mood is a cheat code because it breaks the illusion that your emotional state is in charge. It reminds you that action is a lever, and you're the one holding it. One small movement can tilt your entire internal weather system. So the next time you don't feel like it, don't argue with the mood. Just move. Mood will catch up. Never miss twice. Never miss twice is a powerful mindset and behavior pattern that helps you build consistency, avoid all-or-nothing thinking, and bounce back quickly when life gets messy, which it inevitably does. At its core, this cheat code is a simple rule: if you miss a habit, routine, or commitment once, let it go, but don't let it happen 2 times in a row. Missing once is human. Missing twice is the beginning of a new habit in the wrong direction. Life is unpredictable. You'll oversleep. You'll skip a workout. You'll eat the fast food. You'll miss a journaling session or forget to meditate. That's normal. The danger isn't in the single miss, it's in the story you tell yourself afterward. I've already broken the streak, so what's the point? That thought is the real threat. It's how one missed workout becomes a month of inactivity, or how one cheat meal becomes a complete collapse of your health goals. Never miss twice is the antidote. It reframes a slip-up as a temporary detour, not a failure. You don't need to be perfect to make progress, you just need to be consistent enough. By holding yourself to the standard of not missing twice, you build resilience. You learn to recover fast instead of spiraling. You stop expecting flawless routines and start developing real ones that work in the real world, with its chaos, stress, and distractions. This principle works especially well because it's both forgiving and demanding. It gives you permission to be human, but it also calls you to respond with action. It asks for awareness, notice when you've slipped. Then make a conscious choice to return. That return is the muscle that matters most, the habit of coming back. Applied over time, this mindset becomes a quiet form of discipline. You become the kind of person who keeps showing up, who doesn't let one bad day become two, who doesn't need streaks or motivation to stay on track. You trust yourself to recover, which builds self-respect. You stop chasing perfection and start practicing consistency, and that's where real transformation happens. In the end, never miss twice isn't just about habits. It's about identity. It helps you shift from someone who's always starting over to someone who stays in motion. Someone who expects disruption but knows how to respond. Someone who doesn't let a stumble turn into a stop. Because progress isn't about never falling, it's about learning how to rise, over and over again. Pause before responding. Pause before responding is a deceptively simple life cheat code with profound power. In conversations, especially tense, emotional, or high-stakes ones, our instinct is often to respond immediately. We react without thinking, driven by emotion, ego, or habit. But learning to insert just a moment of space between what someone says and how you respond can transform how you communicate, how people perceive you, and how much control you have over your own emotional state. That pause doesn't have to be long. It can be a breath. A few seconds of silence. A gentle, let me think about that. But in that short space, something crucial happens. You give yourself time to choose your response rather than defaulting to a reaction. And that tiny gap is where maturity, wisdom, and emotional intelligence live. Pausing gives your mind time to catch up with your emotions. It lets the initial surge of defensiveness, irritation, or excitement settle. Instead of lashing out with sarcasm, interrupting, or saying something you'll later regret, you gain the chance to respond with clarity and intention. This shift alone can prevent countless misunderstandings, arguments, and broken relationships. More than that, the pause projects strength. In a world of knee-jerk reactions and constant noise, the person who responds with calm and thoughtfulness stands out. You come across as composed, deliberate, and in control of your thoughts and words. People start to trust your judgment, not just because of what you say, but because of how you say it. The benefits of pausing go beyond conflict. In everyday conversation, that space allows you to listen more fully, understand more deeply, and tailor your words more effectively. You're not just waiting to talk, you're actually processing. That's rare. And powerful. In high-pressure situations, interviews, negotiations, public speaking, that pause becomes your anchor. It prevents you from rushing, rambling, or revealing uncertainty. It gives you control over the tempo of the moment, and often that alone is enough to regain confidence. Importantly, this cheat code also strengthens self-awareness. Every time you pause, you're reinforcing the message that your responses are within your control. You're training yourself to think before you speak, not to suppress what you feel, but to channel it wisely. Pause before responding might sound small, but its impact is enormous. It creates space for thought, for respect, for better outcomes. It's a habit that protects your relationships, elevates your conversations, and gives you the gift of choosing your words with purpose. And once it becomes second nature, you'll look back and wonder how much damage you once did by speaking too fast. Record voice notes while walking. Record voice notes while walking is a deceptively simple life cheat code that merges physical movement with mental clarity, turning everyday walks into highly productive thinking sessions. It harnesses the power of motion to stimulate ideas and the convenience of modern technology to capture them in real time. In a world filled with distractions and sedentary habits, this practice offers a powerful blend of mindfulness, creativity, and efficiency. Walking naturally boosts cognitive function. Studies have shown that movement, especially walking, enhances blood flow to the brain, which in turn improves mood, focus, and problem-solving abilities. You've likely noticed how some of your best ideas come when you're not trying too hard, while showering, driving, or strolling around the block. That's because walking allows your mind to wander just enough to form new connections, yet keeps you grounded enough to think clearly. It's the ideal mental state for reflection, ideation, or problem-solving. But inspiration is slippery. A great thought can vanish as quickly as it arrived. That's where voice notes come in. By recording your thoughts in the moment, while they're fresh, raw, and unfiltered, you preserve ideas that might otherwise be lost. And unlike journaling or typing, speaking is faster and more natural, especially when your hands are occupied or you're on the move. The beauty of voice notes is that they don't have to be polished. You're not writing a script, you're capturing a stream of consciousness, an insight about a project, a solution to a problem, a piece of content, a personal realization, or even a to-do list. Later, you can revisit these notes, organize the best ones, and turn them into actionable plans, journal entries, or creative material. Over time, these voice notes can become a personal archive of growth, ideas, and mental breakthroughs. This cheat code is especially useful for thinkers, creatives, entrepreneurs, students, and anyone who feels mentally cluttered. It turns passive time into active processing. Instead of doom scrolling or zoning out during a walk, you engage in a conversation with yourself, one that's honest, spontaneous, and often surprisingly insightful. It also lowers the barrier to self-reflection. For people who struggle to journal or meditate, talking out loud while walking can be a more accessible form of inner dialogue. There's something freeing about being in motion and speaking freely, without the pressure to make it perfect. In short, recording voice notes while walking transforms a common activity into a powerful mental productivity tool. It's a way to clear your head, capture your thoughts, and stay connected to your inner voice, all while taking care of your body. It's simple, sustainable, and surprisingly transformative, and once it becomes a habit, you'll wonder how you ever walked in silence. Remember people's names. Remember people's names is a subtle yet powerful life cheat code that can dramatically improve your relationships, reputation, and influence, both personally and professionally. It might seem like a small detail, but remembering someone's name is one of the simplest ways to make them feel seen, valued, and respected. And in a world where most people are too distracted to pay close attention, doing so sets you apart almost instantly. Names carry emotional weight. For most people, their name is deeply tied to their identity. When you remember and use someone's name in conversation, it sends a clear signal: you matter. I noticed you. I care enough to remember you. This simple act builds trust, warms interactions, and opens doors. It creates a sense of connection that goes beyond surface-level politeness. People are far more likely to respond positively, be cooperative, or remember you when they feel recognized as individuals. Conversely, forgetting a name, or worse, repeatedly calling someone the wrong one, can come across as careless or indifferent, even if unintentionally. It may not ruin a relationship, but it subtly erodes the sense of personal rapport. That's why mastering the skill of remembering names can give you a serious social edge. Fortunately, it's not about having a good memory. It's about applying attention and technique. Most of the time, people forget names because they don't really listen when they're introduced, they're too busy thinking about what to say next. The cheat code here is to slow down and lock it in. When someone tells you their name, repeat it out loud: "Nice to meet you, Sarah." This repetition plants the name more firmly in your memory. If possible, associate it with something distinctive, a feature, a rhyme, or a mental image. The more unusual or vivid the association, the more likely it will stick. Another trick is to use the name a few times naturally during your first conversation. "So Sarah, what do you do?" Or, "That's a great point, Sarah." This not only helps you remember, it makes the other person feel acknowledged. Later, make a quick note in your phone or notebook if it's someone you'll likely see again. It takes seconds, but can save you the awkwardness of re-asking later. In professional settings, remembering names can be a game changer. It makes clients feel appreciated, colleagues feel respected, and teams feel more cohesive. In personal life, it builds friendships, earns trust, and makes people feel like they belong. At its core, this cheat code is about mindfulness and effort. Remembering names isn't a memory test, it's a relationship tool. And like most powerful tools, it works best when it's intentional. If you make this a habit, you'll find that people warm to you more quickly, conversations become more personal, and opportunities start flowing more naturally, because people tend to remember those who remember them. Reread the top 5 books that changed you. Reread the top 5 books that changed you is a life cheat code rooted in a simple truth: we change, and so does the meaning we extract from the things we read. The books that once shifted your thinking, opened your eyes, or gave you clarity are not one-time experiences, they're living mirrors that reflect who you are now. Rereading them isn't redundant, it's an act of deepening, rediscovering, and reactivating the wisdom that shaped you. The first time you read a powerful book, it leaves an imprint. Maybe it gave you the words for feelings you couldn't explain. Maybe it taught you a principle that altered your path. But at that time, you read it with the mind and perspective you had then. Over time, as you grow, struggle, succeed, or evolve, that perspective changes. Your life has more context now. Your mind is sharper. Your questions are different. When you return to a book that once moved you, you're not just repeating an experience, you're unlocking new layers of meaning that were invisible before. This is especially true for books about philosophy, psychology, personal growth, or even fiction that carries deep themes. The second, or third, read is often when you realize how much you missed the first time. A line that once seemed ordinary might hit with new emotional weight. A concept that felt abstract before now applies perfectly to your current situation. It's like meeting an old friend who knows you better than you remember. Rereading also helps to reinforce ideas that matter. In a world full of noise and novelty, it's easy to forget the insights that once lit you up. By revisiting your top 5 life-changing books, you re-anchor yourself to the values, mindsets, or lessons that shaped you. It's not just about remembering the content, it's about remembering who you were becoming when you first read it. There's also a tactical benefit. Rather than chasing more books, more information, more voices, you're refining your core mental foundation. You're returning to the best sources, the ones that already passed the test of impact. This brings focus to your intellectual life. Instead of being a collector of ideas, you become a practitioner of the ones that work. To use this cheat code well, make a short list: the 5 books that changed how you think, act, or see the world. Not necessarily the most popular books, but the ones that changed you. Then set a ritual, maybe once a year, reread one of them. Take notes, reflect on how you're different now, and ask, what new lesson is this book trying to teach me today? Ultimately, rereading your top 5 books isn't about nostalgia, it's about realignment. It reconnects you to your growth journey and strengthens the mental roots you've already planted. In a world that constantly pushes you to chase what's new, this cheat code reminds you, sometimes, the next breakthrough comes not from reading more, but from reading deeper. Use if-then planning. Using if-then planning is a mental strategy that transforms good intentions into reliable actions by creating a clear roadmap for your behavior before life gets messy. It's a deceptively simple but scientifically backed method that strengthens your follow-through, especially in moments of stress, distraction, or uncertainty. Instead of relying on motivation or willpower, which are notoriously unreliable, you build a small mental contract with yourself. If a specific situation happens, then you'll take a specific action. The power of this approach lies in its clarity and specificity. Vague goals like, I want to exercise more, or, I need to stop checking my phone so much, often fail because they don't tell your brain when or how to act. But an if-then plan eliminates that ambiguity. It might look like, if it's 7 a.m., then I'll put on my workout clothes. Or, if I feel the urge to scroll social media at work, then I'll take a 2-minute walk instead. These small scripts preload your decisions so you don't have to negotiate with yourself in the heat of the moment. What makes if-then planning so effective is that it prepares you for the friction points ahead of time. You anticipate obstacles, distractions, or habits you want to change, and you program in an automatic response. Your brain doesn't have to debate or stall, it just follows the plan. Studies have shown that people who use this strategy are significantly more likely to follow through on everything from exercising regularly to sticking to diets to managing stress. You can apply it to nearly any area of life. Want to build a new habit? If I finish lunch, then I'll read for 10 minutes. Want to handle stress better? If I start feeling overwhelmed, then I'll take 5 deep breaths. Want to be more productive? If I sit down at my desk, then I'll open my to-do list before checking email. These aren't rigid rules, they're flexible frameworks that turn intentions into automatic behavior. Over time, if-then plans become internal triggers, mental shortcuts that require less effort the more you use them. They reduce decision fatigue, increase your consistency, and help you build habits that stick. In a world full of distractions and shifting priorities, having pre-decided actions in your mental toolbox gives you a quiet sense of control. This is the essence of the cheat code. If-then planning doesn't require discipline or constant motivation. It just requires foresight. You decide once, clearly and calmly, how you want to act, and when the moment comes, you follow through without the mental tug-of-war. It's a small act of preparation that leads to lasting change. Use a not-to-do list. A not-to-do list is one of the most underrated tools for protecting your time, energy, and focus in a world that constantly pulls you in multiple directions. While to-do lists tell you what you should be doing, a not-to-do list tells you what you must stop doing, those habits, distractions, and obligations that quietly sabotage your productivity and peace of mind. It's a form of self-boundary setting, a reminder that what you don't do is just as important as what you do. We often assume that being productive means cramming more into our schedule, ticking off task after task. But many people remain busy and overwhelmed because they haven't identified and eliminated the things that waste their time or drain their attention. That's where the not-to-do list comes in. It makes you conscious of the invisible patterns that consume your day, like checking email compulsively, saying yes to every meeting or favor, scrolling through social media without purpose, or working late out of guilt rather than necessity. By writing these down, you create a reference point, a behavioral boundary that helps you filter your actions. When a decision comes up, you can look at your not-to-do list and check, is this one of those things I promised myself to avoid? That split second of awareness can save hours of wasted time and help you stay aligned with your real priorities. This list can be deeply personal. For one person, it might include, don't check email before 10 a.m. because mornings are their most creative time. For another, it might be, don't engage in political debates online, or, don't schedule back-to-back meetings. It might even include mindset traps like, don't try to multitask, or, don't start the day without a plan. Whatever appears on your not-to-do list should reflect the actions and behaviors that historically derail your focus, lower your standards, or deplete your energy. The real power of the not-to-do list lies in subtraction. Productivity isn't just about doing more, it's often about doing less of the wrong things. By deliberately removing distractions and low-value habits, you create more space for deep work, meaningful rest, and conscious living. In the same way a sculptor reveals form by carving away stone, you shape a more effective and intentional life by saying no, on purpose, and in writing. Use email yourself as a personal inbox. Using email yourself as a personal inbox is a practical and surprisingly powerful life hack for capturing thoughts, reminders, and to-dos in real time, before they slip away. In a world overflowing with productivity apps and note-taking tools, this method stands out for its simplicity, speed, and reliability. Your email inbox is already one of the few places you check regularly, often multiple times a day. By turning it into a temporary holding space for your ideas and tasks, you create a low-friction system that helps you stay organized without adding another layer of complexity. The core idea is straightforward. Whenever something important pops into your head, an idea, a task, a meeting follow-up, a phrase you want to remember, or even a personal insight, you send yourself a quick email. You don't need to open an app, sort it into a category, or decide where it belongs. You just fire it off to your own inbox and move on. This technique works especially well in moments when you're in transit, in conversation, or in the middle of a task and can't afford to get distracted. A few quick taps, and it's saved somewhere you won't forget. What makes this method so effective is that it uses a system that's already embedded in your daily routine. Unlike apps that require setup or regular engagement to stay useful, your email is probably already a core part of your workflow. When you email yourself, you're not relying on memory or adding another item to track, you're simply leveraging a space you're guaranteed to revisit. It becomes a funnel for unstructured thoughts, ready to be sorted and acted upon when the time is right. Some people even create a custom label or folder within their inbox to store these self-emails, keeping them separate from outside messages. Others prefer to let them sit right in the main inbox, where they act as a visible cue that can't be ignored. Either way, the point is to catch fleeting thoughts before they disappear and store them somewhere familiar and accessible. In essence, emailing yourself is a modern-day version of jotting a note on your palm, except it's searchable, organized, and synced across your devices. It turns your inbox into a personalized command center, not just a place where information comes in, but also where your own ideas and actions emerge. It's a reminder that sometimes, the simplest tools, used intentionally, are the most powerful. Use Feynman technique to learn anything. Use the Feynman technique to learn anything is a life cheat code that transforms complex learning into deep understanding by forcing your brain to truly engage with information, not just memorize it. Named after the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman, who was famous for making complicated topics seem simple, this technique is a powerful tool for students, professionals, self-learners, or anyone who wants to master a subject quickly and retain it long-term. The Feynman technique is built around one central idea: if you can't explain it simply, you don't really understand it. Most people trick themselves into thinking they've learned something just because they've read it, heard it, or passed a test on it. But passive absorption doesn't equal comprehension. The Feynman technique flips the learning process from passive to active, using teaching as a way to uncover gaps in your understanding and fill them. Here's how it works. Choose the concept you want to learn. Start with a specific idea, process, or topic. It can be anything: photosynthesis, compound interest, blockchain technology, or the plot of a novel. Clarity begins with focus. Explain it as if you're teaching a 12-year-old. Without looking at your notes, write down or speak out loud an explanation of the concept in your own words, as if you're teaching it to a child. Use simple language. No jargon. No academic fluff. This step forces you to translate complex ideas into clear, digestible thoughts. If you struggle, you found a gap in your knowledge, that's a good thing. Identify the gaps and go back to the source material. Wherever you get stuck, forget a step, or use vague language, you've hit a weak spot in your understanding. Return to your materials, books, lectures, articles, and dig into those gaps. This is targeted learning. You're now studying with a clear purpose instead of rereading everything passively. Simplify and use analogies. Once you've reinforced your weak spots, refine your explanation again, this time simpler, cleaner, maybe even using analogies or metaphors. Can you compare a financial system to plumbing? Can you explain mitochondria like a power plant? This is the mark of real mastery, when you can relate unfamiliar ideas to familiar ones. Teach or test it in real life. Finally, explain the concept to someone else, or at least pretend to. Record a video, write a blog post, speak it aloud. Teaching reveals whether you really know the material or just think you do. Bonus: if someone asks a question you can't answer, you've found a new layer to learn. What makes this technique so powerful is that it mirrors how the brain actually learns, through active recall, simplification, and feedback. You're not just trying to remember information, you're engaging with it, shaping it, and making it your own. The Feynman technique works for almost anything: mastering academic subjects, prepping for presentations, learning technical skills, or even just trying to understand a big idea you read online. It keeps you honest. It protects you from the illusion of knowledge. And best of all, it turns learning into a creative, empowering process. Once you start using it, you'll realize that real understanding is not about knowing big words or sounding smart. It's about clarity, confidence, and the ability to teach what you know. And that, as Feynman believed, is the true test of intelligence. Assume positive intent. Assuming positive intent is a subtle but powerful mindset shift that can dramatically improve the quality of your relationships, communication, and emotional well-being. At its core, this principle means choosing to believe that other people's actions, especially the ones that might frustrate, confuse, or offend you, are not rooted in malice, stupidity, or selfishness, but in reasons that, from their perspective, probably make sense. It's not about being naive or ignoring toxic behavior, but about giving people the benefit of the doubt unless there's clear evidence otherwise. In everyday life, misunderstandings are everywhere. A short email feels cold. A friend forgets to reply. A coworker interrupts you in a meeting. The natural tendency is to take these moments personally, to assume they're deliberate slights or signs of disrespect. But in most cases, they're not. People are often distracted, overwhelmed, insecure, or simply unaware of how they're coming across. When you assume positive intent, you interpret their actions with compassion rather than judgment. You pause and consider other explanations. Maybe they were rushed, maybe they misread the situation, maybe they're dealing with something you can't see. This small mental adjustment can defuse conflict before it even begins. It softens your response, encourages curiosity over confrontation, and creates space for better communication. When you approach someone with the belief that they weren't trying to harm or disrespect you, they're more likely to respond with openness and honesty. It builds trust, lowers defensiveness, and sets a collaborative tone in conversations. Beyond interpersonal dynamics, assuming positive intent also benefits your inner world. When you stop interpreting everything through a lens of threat or insult, you carry less anger, less resentment, less emotional baggage. You're not constantly on guard, trying to decode hidden meanings or protect your ego. Instead, you move through the world with a calmer, more grounded mindset, one that makes it easier to connect, forgive, and move on. Of course, this doesn't mean tolerating bad behavior or ignoring patterns of harm. Assuming positive intent doesn't erase accountability. But it does help you respond to problems with clarity rather than reactivity. It invites you to seek understanding first, to have the hard conversation rather than jumping to conclusions. Ultimately, assuming positive intent is a quiet form of emotional intelligence. It's a decision to meet the world with grace instead of suspicion. And like all the best life cheat codes, it costs nothing, but it changes everything. Batch similar tasks. Batching similar tasks is a powerful productivity technique that leverages the brain's natural preference for focus and rhythm. Instead of constantly switching between different types of tasks throughout the day, checking emails, making calls, writing reports, attending meetings, you group similar activities together and handle them in dedicated blocks of time. The idea is simple: when your brain stays in the same mode for an extended period, it becomes more efficient, faster, and less mentally fatigued. Each time you switch between unrelated tasks, you experience what's known as context switching. Even if it feels minor, like checking a text in the middle of writing a report, that shift carries a cognitive cost. Your brain has to disengage from one type of thinking and re-engage in another, which not only slows you down but also diminishes the quality of your work. When you batch similar tasks, such as responding to all emails at once, making all your phone calls in a row, or blocking off a morning just for creative work, you eliminate most of that mental friction. You allow your brain to settle into a groove, tapping into a flow state where work feels smoother and more immersive. This approach doesn't just increase efficiency, it reduces overwhelm. A scattered schedule can feel chaotic, with different demands constantly pulling your attention in multiple directions. Batching restores a sense of order and control. It allows you to fully commit to one type of task without worrying about the others, because you've already set aside time for them. Your day becomes a series of focused sessions rather than a jumble of interruptions and half-finished thoughts. Batching is especially useful in modern work environments where distractions are everywhere. Instead of checking email 27 times a day, you might batch that into 2 dedicated sessions, one in the late morning and another in the afternoon. Instead of jumping into meetings at random times, you might schedule them back to back on specific days, freeing up long stretches for uninterrupted work. You can batch errands, conversations, administrative chores, even creative brainstorming. Ultimately, batching similar tasks is about working smarter, not harder. It turns your schedule into a tool rather than a trap. It brings rhythm to your day, guards your focus, and allows you to produce higher quality work with less mental strain. It's a cheat code not just for getting more done, but for feeling calmer and more in control while doing it. Default to action. Defaulting to action is a mindset shift that turns hesitation into momentum and transforms uncertainty into progress. It means that when faced with a choice, especially in moments of doubt, ambiguity, or inertia, you make movement your instinctive response. Rather than overthinking, waiting for perfect conditions, or seeking endless validation, you take the next small step forward. This doesn't mean acting recklessly or without thought, but it does mean recognizing that clarity often comes from action, not before it. In many areas of life, the cost of inaction is far greater than the risk of doing something imperfectly. We lose time, opportunities, and confidence by staying stuck in planning mode, paralyzed by what-ifs or trying to find the right way before beginning. Defaulting to action interrupts that cycle. It creates momentum, and momentum is powerful. It breaks the spell of procrastination, builds confidence through progress, and opens doors that overthinking tends to keep closed. This mindset thrives on the understanding that most decisions aren't permanent. You can refine, adjust, or course-correct as you go. But none of that is possible unless you begin. Starting small is enough. Write the first sentence, send the email, make the call, ask the question. The point is not to get it perfect but to get it moving. Once you're in motion, the next step becomes more visible. Energy follows effort. Defaulting to action is also a form of personal leadership. It shows that you trust yourself to handle what comes next. You stop outsourcing your power to circumstances, other people, or the illusion of someday. You recognize that most people wait, and by choosing to move, you separate yourself from the crowd. This doesn't just apply to big goals or creative projects. It applies to life's countless small choices, having that honest conversation, fixing what's broken, signing up, showing up, speaking up. The beauty of this cheat code is that it simplifies decision-making. When in doubt, move. Take the smallest actionable step. Because inaction guarantees nothing, but action guarantees learning. Even if you fail, you gain feedback, insight, and resilience, far more than you would from staying still. Over time, defaulting to action becomes a habit, then a way of being. It turns you into a person who doesn't wait for change, but initiates it, who doesn't just hope for better, but builds it. Limit your daily decisions. Limiting your daily decisions is a quiet, behind-the-scenes life cheat code that protects your energy, sharpens your focus, and helps you stay calm in a world full of endless choices. Every day, from the moment you wake up, you're bombarded with decisions: what to wear, what to eat, when to check your phone, how to respond to messages, what task to start with, where to spend your time. On the surface, these choices seem small, but together they create something known as decision fatigue, a mental drain that slowly chips away at your clarity, willpower, and ability to make good judgments as the day goes on. The idea behind limiting your daily decisions is simple: the fewer trivial choices you have to make, the more mental energy you preserve for the ones that actually matter. This isn't about becoming robotic or rigid, it's about designing your life in a way that removes unnecessary friction. You automate, streamline, or pre-decide the low-stakes stuff so that your mind is free to handle real problems, creative thinking, and meaningful actions. This is why some of the most high-performing people in the world, from CEOs to athletes, intentionally wear the same outfit every day, eat the same breakfast, or follow strict routines. It's not laziness or lack of variety, it's strategy. When you don't have to think about the little things, you avoid draining your cognitive resources before the real work even begins. You become more decisive, more focused, and less overwhelmed by the constant "what's next" loop that plagues most people's minds. There are countless ways to apply this principle. You can plan your meals for the week in advance. Set a consistent morning routine. Use the same workspace setup. Schedule deep work at the same time each day. Batch similar tasks together instead of jumping from one thing to another. The point is to build systems that remove the burden of repeated decision-making. Limiting your daily decisions also reduces stress. A lot of anxiety comes from overanalyzing things that don't really matter. When you simplify your choices, you spend less time second-guessing and more time doing. You reclaim control not by managing more, but by needing to manage less. In the end, this cheat code isn't about restriction, it's about freedom. The fewer decisions you waste on the trivial, the more bandwidth you have for what truly matters: solving problems, pursuing your goals, connecting with people, and living with purpose. Replace but with and. Replace but with and is a subtle yet powerful life cheat code that transforms how you communicate, especially in moments of tension, disagreement, or feedback. At first glance, it seems like a small linguistic tweak. But in practice, this one-word change reshapes your tone, fosters cooperation, and prevents others from feeling dismissed or contradicted. It's a shift from opposition to collaboration, from defensiveness to dialogue. Most people use the word but when they want to contrast or qualify what they just said. For example, "You did a good job, but you missed a few things." "I agree with you, but I think there's another way." "I'm sorry you feel that way, but I didn't mean it like that." The problem is that "but" acts like a mental eraser. Whatever came before it gets cancelled out. When someone hears "but," they often stop listening and brace themselves for rejection or criticism. Even if your intentions are positive, the word triggers defensiveness because it signals disagreement or a correction that invalidates the first part of the sentence. Replacing "but" with "and" changes the tone entirely. "You did a good job, and there are a few areas we can improve. I agree with you, and I think there's another way to look at it. I'm sorry you feel that way, and I want to explain what I meant. Now, instead of creating friction, your message becomes additive. It feels like a continuation, not a contradiction. The other person feels acknowledged and included in the conversation, rather than shut down. This softens your delivery, keeps the emotional temperature lower, and opens the door for collaboration rather than conflict. This isn't about being vague or avoiding disagreement. It's about framing disagreement in a way that's less likely to cause emotional resistance. And communicates that both things can be true at once. You can appreciate someone's effort and offer suggestions. You can understand someone's perspective and express your own. You can acknowledge a mistake and clarify your intention. That small shift turns conversations from win/lose to win/win. Using "and" also trains your brain to think more flexibly. It encourages nuance, coexistence, and complexity, qualities that make your communication more emotionally intelligent. It makes you a better leader, partner, colleague, and friend because people feel safer talking to someone who doesn't automatically oppose, but rather builds on what's being said. At first, it might feel awkward or unnatural. That's normal. Like any cheat code, it takes practice. But once you begin to notice the difference in how people respond to you, more open, more relaxed, more willing to engage, you'll see the power of this tiny word in action. In the end, replacing "but" with "and" is about shifting from contradiction to connection. It's a small change that makes your words easier to receive, your presence easier to trust, and your conversations far more effective. Teach what you learn. Teach what you learn is one of the most underrated yet transformative life cheat codes. On the surface, it sounds like a generous gesture, sharing knowledge with others. But beneath that is a powerful self-development strategy that accelerates understanding, deepens memory, and builds confidence like nothing else. When we learn something new, whether it's a skill, concept, or insight, it can remain fragile in our minds, especially if we passively absorb it through reading, watching, or listening. However, the moment we try to explain it to someone else, everything changes. Teaching forces us to confront what we don't fully understand. It exposes the gaps in our knowledge, challenges us to simplify complex ideas, and turns abstract concepts into practical language. This act of translation from learner to teacher solidifies what we've learned in a way that passive study never can. There's a reason the Feynman technique, named after physicist Richard Feynman, is built around this exact principle. It suggests that if you can't explain something simply, you don't really understand it. By trying to teach a concept to someone unfamiliar with it, especially in plain language, you're not only helping them but also reinforcing the foundation of your own learning. Moreover, teaching what you learn creates a loop of accountability and curiosity. When you know you're going to share knowledge, you're more motivated to understand it deeply. You approach the material more actively, with questions like, "How would I explain this? Where might someone get confused?" or "What's the real-world application of this?" In this way, the intent to teach transforms passive learning into intentional mastery. This habit also has powerful ripple effects. Teaching others builds your reputation as someone knowledgeable, helpful, and competent, even if you're just a few steps ahead of the people you're teaching. It improves your communication skills, boosts your self-confidence, and often leads to opportunities, collaborations, or leadership roles. People are drawn to those who share knowledge freely and clearly. Importantly, you don't have to be an expert to teach. You just have to be one step ahead. Even explaining what you just learned today to a peer, a friend, or even through a blog post or a social media thread can have lasting effects on how well that knowledge stays with you. And the more you teach, the more you learn. It's a cycle of mutual growth. In essence, teach what you learn is about turning information into transformation. It's about moving from consumption to contribution. And when practiced consistently, it becomes one of the fastest, most rewarding ways to grow yourself while uplifting those around you. Give compliments generously, but specifically. Giving compliments generously, but specifically, is a powerful and underrated life cheat code for building deeper relationships, boosting morale, and cultivating genuine connection. It's easy to underestimate the impact of a kind word, but the truth is, people remember how they feel around you. And one of the fastest ways to make someone feel seen, valued, and uplifted is through a compliment that actually means something. The key here is twofold: be generous and be specific. Being generous doesn't mean being fake or over the top, it means looking for opportunities to express appreciation or admiration instead of keeping it to yourself. Most people notice good things in others, a thoughtful gesture, a great idea, a well-executed task, but they don't always say it out loud. They assume the other person knows, or they worry it might be awkward. But when you take that extra moment to share what you see, it matters. People light up. They remember. But the true magic happens when you get specific. Instead of saying, "You're awesome," you say, "I really admire how you stayed calm during the chaotic meeting, it made a huge difference." Instead of, "Good job," you say, "The way you structured that report made it so easy to understand. It showed a lot of clarity and care." Specificity signals sincerity. It shows that you're paying attention, that your compliment isn't just a reflex or a pleasantry, it's real. And when people feel seen in this way, their confidence grows. Trust deepens. Motivation rises. This approach works in every area of life. In professional settings, it strengthens teams, increases engagement, and builds leadership presence. In friendships, it makes people feel appreciated in ways they don't often hear. In relationships, it fuels emotional intimacy by affirming qualities that might otherwise go unnoticed. Over time, complimenting specifically helps you become someone who notices the good in people, and says so. This isn't just about being kind, it's about being intentional with your words. In a world full of noise, flattery, and surface-level praise, a specific compliment cuts through. It sticks. It affirms identity, effort, or strength in a way that helps people see themselves more clearly. And just as importantly, it transforms you, too. You start focusing less on judgments and comparisons, and more on appreciation and empathy. You become someone people feel good around, not because you flatter them, but because you recognize them. So yes, give compliments freely. Don't hold back your positive thoughts. But take that extra beat to be precise. Be the person who notices something others overlook, and says it out loud. It's a small gesture that can leave a lasting mark. Momentum is bigger than motivation. Momentum is more powerful than motivation. That's the life cheat code most people overlook. Motivation feels good, but it's unreliable. It comes in waves, often triggered by moods, inspiration, or external circumstances. One day you're energized and ready to conquer the world. The next, you're stuck on the couch, waiting to feel like it again. If you rely on motivation to make progress, you'll constantly stall, restart, and second-guess yourself. But momentum, that's different. Momentum doesn't ask how you feel, it builds itself, quietly and powerfully, through action. Momentum is the result of starting, however small. It's built by taking the first step, then the next, even when you're unmotivated, uncertain, or distracted. And once you're in motion, it becomes easier to stay in motion. A few minutes of effort turns into half an hour of focus. One small win leads to another. Forward movement generates energy. Progress becomes its own kind of fuel. This principle works because momentum rewires your psychology. When you start doing something, even without enthusiasm, your brain begins to shift from resistance to engagement. You start to feel invested. Tasks that felt overwhelming shrink in size. The fog clears. You stop waiting for the perfect mood or the right moment and start creating results through rhythm and repetition. Over time, it becomes less about wanting to act and more about becoming someone who does act. The key is to reduce friction at the beginning. Don't wait to be inspired, just lower the barrier to starting. Tell yourself you'll write for 5 minutes, take one step outside, open the file, do the first rep. That tiny push breaks inertia. From there, momentum takes over and carries you farther than motivation ever could. This cheat code flips a common belief that motivation leads to action. In truth, it's usually the other way around. Action leads to progress. Progress leads to confidence. Confidence generates motivation. But it all begins with motion. You don't need to feel ready, you just need to move. In the long run, momentum becomes a habit. A lifestyle. A default state of doing rather than waiting. And that's where real change happens, not in the rush of inspiration, but in the quiet force of repeated effort. So when in doubt, don't wait to feel motivated. Start small, move forward, and let momentum do the rest. Work in Pomodoros. Working in Pomodoros is a deceptively simple time management technique that helps you stay focused, avoid burnout, and actually finish what you start. It's built around the idea that the human brain isn't wired for long, uninterrupted stretches of concentration, especially in a world filled with distractions. Instead, it thrives in short bursts of focused effort, followed by intentional breaks. That's exactly what the Pomodoro technique offers, a cycle of focused work and structured rest that keeps your mind fresh and your productivity high. Here's how it works. You set a timer for 25 minutes, this is your Pomodoro. During this time, you commit to working on just one task with full attention. No multitasking, no tab switching, no glancing at your phone. Just focused work. When the timer rings, you take a 5-minute break. Step away, stretch, grab some water, anything except continuing to work. After completing 4 of these 25-minute work sessions, you take a longer break, usually 15 to 30 minutes. Then, repeat as needed. What makes this technique so effective is that it leverages 2 powerful forces, urgency and relief. The 25-minute timer creates a sense of urgency that helps you overcome procrastination. It's just long enough to make progress, but short enough to feel manageable. It's easier to get started when the commitment is small. On the other hand, the regular breaks prevent mental fatigue and give your brain space to recharge, reducing the likelihood of burnout or zoning out. Pomodoros also help you understand your own work habits. You begin to notice how many Pomodoros it actually takes to complete certain tasks, where your attention tends to slip, and what times of day you're most focused. This makes it easier to plan your day realistically and avoid underestimating or overloading yourself. Perhaps the most underrated benefit of the Pomodoro method is that it builds momentum. Often, the hardest part of working is getting started. By breaking the day into bite-sized sessions, you lower the barrier to entry. One Pomodoro leads to another, and before you know it, you've strung together hours of focused progress. And because you've built in rest, you're more likely to stay consistent day after day. Working in Pomodoros is a life cheat code because it turns time from something you battle into something you use. It replaces vague intentions like, "I'll work on this later," with a clear, actionable rhythm: work, rest, repeat. It teaches you to respect your attention span, work with your brain, not against it, and make meaningful progress without feeling overwhelmed. In short, it's a structure that frees you. Write down everything that's on your mind. Writing down everything that's on your mind is a deceptively simple yet profoundly effective life cheat code for reducing stress, regaining focus, and clearing mental clutter. Our brains are not designed to hold dozens of open loops, unfinished tasks, lingering worries, reminders, ideas, emotions, decisions, conversations, yet most of us walk around carrying all of it in our heads like an overloaded to-do list. The result? Mental fog, anxiety, distraction, and a constant sense of unease that's hard to name but always present. The fix isn't more willpower or better memory. It's getting it all out, onto paper, a screen, or any medium that makes it real and visible. When you write down everything that's on your mind, you're performing a kind of mental download. You're saying to your brain, you don't need to hold on to this anymore. It's safe here. This simple act can be immediately calming. As thoughts move from abstract, swirling noise into tangible words, they lose some of their emotional charge. You create distance. You make the invisible visible, which gives you clarity and control. This isn't about elegant writing or perfect journaling. It's about raw, unfiltered brain dumping. Sit down, open a notebook or digital doc, and start listing whatever is floating around in your mind. No structure required. Just pour, tasks you haven't started, things you're worried about, people you need to call, questions you're mulling over, goals you've been avoiding, decisions you're stuck on, random thoughts that keep interrupting your focus. Everything goes in. Nothing is too small or too messy. What happens next is almost magical. Once everything is out in front of you, patterns begin to emerge. Some items are urgent. Some are recurring themes. Some are things you can let go of. Some just needed acknowledgement. You begin to see what's actually weighing you down and what actions, if any, you can take. It turns a mental storm into a map. This process also helps with focus. When your brain is full, it's hard to concentrate on anything deeply because part of your mind is always trying to juggle everything else. Writing it all down creates space. You lighten the mental load. You can return to your priorities with greater presence and peace. And beyond productivity, there's emotional value here too. Thoughts you didn't even realize you were suppressing, resentments, fears, dreams, can surface. Giving them a place to land creates emotional release. It's not just a tool for getting things done, it's a tool for feeling better. Ultimately, writing down everything that's on your mind is a form of self-respect. You're taking yourself seriously enough to pause, listen, and unload. You're saying, my mental space matters. It's low effort, high impact, and endlessly repeatable, whether once a week, once a day, or in any moment you feel overwhelmed. So next time your brain feels noisy and overloaded, don't just push through. Sit down. Write it all out. And feel the weight lift.